Gospel Radio. One king and one kingdom making people feel like family.
Yes, my daddy is the best.
Growth Radio is growing with a new program, Who's Your Daddy? Every Sunday evening from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Who's Your Daddy? Every Sunday, 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Growth Radio, RadioTT.com.
All right, and we are on live this evening. Thank you so much, Growth Radio listeners, for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to have you with us on Sunday evenings for Who's Your Daddy? We are here on Growth Radio TT every Sunday evening from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Trinidad and Tobago time. And today we have a foreigner. We have somebody from overseas, from foreign for all you. And we are so glad to have him. We have a little bit of history. I don't know if you're going to get into that, but we're here to talk about his daddy. So I want to, before I even introduce him, I want to say a warm welcome to Growth Radio listeners on TuneIn Radio, Radio Garden, Listen to My Radio, radio.net, My Radio Hut, those on YouTube Live and Facebook Live, welcome. A warm Growth Radio welcome to you. And also those who are listening to us from way beyond our shores, those in Malaysia, those in Nicaragua, those in Belgium. We see you, those in Cameroon. We really bless God for you. And we thank you for logging in, for tuning in so faithfully every day, every week, however you listen to us, we value you. So this evening, we have a very special guest. He's special in many, many ways, professionally, even to my family, he's very special in the Broome family. And he is an entrepreneur and he is a business executive, among many, many other things. I mean, I could go on. We could spend this entire interview just talking about all of his accolades because he's done and is doing so much. I mean, I don't know how he does it. Maybe he can tell you tonight, but I want to introduce you to this business executive, this entrepreneur, this visionary. His name is John Richard Siner, and he is from the USA. He's not from here. I don't know if he's even ever been in Trinidad and Tobago. Have you ever been in Trinidad and Tobago, John? Shame on you. Shame on you. Not for lack of invitations, huh? Not for lack of invitations. So Growth Radio listeners, please welcome, and with me, Mr. John Richard Siner. He is an entrepreneur and the founder of Why Sports Matters, and he's also the executive director of Tropical Sevens. He's going to tell you a little bit more about that so that you know what we're speaking of. Welcome, John.
Hello, Cherisee. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And we're very glad to have you. You know, we like to hear about other people's dads and what it is that influenced them, how their dads impacted their lives. And, you know, you have been doing so much and we just want to know, how did you get there? And who are the people, you know, behind the scenes that we haven't seen that gave rise to this talent, to who you are. So before we go even further, could you tell the listening public who is John Siner?
Oh, wow, Cherisee, what a loaded question. Well, I think the first thing I need to say is that this program is obviously about fathers and being a daddy and fatherhood. So one of the things that you left off on my CV, which is more important than any of those things, is I'm also a father myself. And that's probably my number one job. And you've had the pleasure of meeting my kids. I don't know how pleasurable it was because they're kind of crazy kids.
Always pleasurable, always.
But I have two boys are growing very fast. My oldest just turned 10 and my youngest is 7. So I am very fortunate to be a father first and foremost. And I certainly try at least to prioritize family first, and then sort of juggle everything else in between. So the older I get, the more I feel like I need to prioritize a little bit better. It's not always easy, but I do enjoy being a father myself. So that's a good way to start, I think.
That's awesome. I think that's a very good step to start on, as you said, John, because, on this program, we really do acknowledge the value and the place and the presence of fathers. As I've said in previous segments, there seems to be a battle against men and against fathers. And we don't want to join that fight, but we want to be part and parcel of supporting fathers and supporting fatherhood. It's a noble place to be. And I think it's honorable. Fatherhood is honorable, and fathers should be honored. And that's what we do here, right? So we salute you as a father as well, John. We salute you and all that you do for your children. How has your life changed? Could you tell us since becoming a father?
It was turned upside down. That's a good start. So I guess I've been going on 10 years now as a father. And it's one of the few things in your life that is irrevocable, right? You can't go back to the way it was. You must move forward because you have this living creature that is now your responsibility. And you have to raise it, and you have to do the best that you can. So it changes fundamentally your life, and everything that you do. You have to schedule your time and your daily, weekly, monthly life around what you need to do to keep this little person going. And it doesn't come with a rule book either. So you don't have any idea what you're doing at the beginning. That's for sure. And you just kind of go with it. And eventually especially if you have a pretty good supportive wife, you can do it as a team. You definitely start to figure it out, so to speak. It's a cliche to say that your firstborn gets a lot more attention and a lot more worrying about than your second one. And was very true in our house. So, every day was a new milestone for the first one, whereas the second one, we already knew what to expect. So we didn't think much about all those things that we thought were such a big deal with the first one that came around. Very little things like, are they injured, or what, you can identify a cry that means whether they're hurt or whether they're just whining and complaining, and you can easily separate it. So unfortunately, the second kid did not get any of the attention. When you go back and look at your photos, there's thousands of photos with the first one. And then you just kind of said, why didn't we take any pictures with the second one? But it's because you got better at it, and you weren't as fascinated with all the newness of it. But
the first is always the first, right?
I always tell people that, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. And it's not easy to have kids. I almost don't even recommend it because it's so painful. But on the other hand, it is the most amazing thing that you will do in your life. And if you embrace it and you have the right attitude, and you're at a good point in your life to be able to dedicate the time and what it takes to raise kids, then it is a pretty amazing thing to watch and groom these young humans into bigger humans. And I've still got a lot of my journey to go, which is quite exciting. But it's rewarding and inspirational and amazing, but it's also extremely difficult. But there you go.
Yeah, well, that's fatherhood. That's being a big boy. That's being a grown up, right? That's part and parcel, and it really helps mature you as well, And so you mentioned quite a number of things, and I would have to agree with some of them. Fatherhood is very rewarding. It is not easy because it's a whole new human being. It's not easy, but it is rewarding. And we thank you, John, and we thank all of those fathers who stuck with their children and did not relent, and they did not renege on their responsibility. I really have to shout out all fathers, all good fathers that stayed with their children. Hats off to you. And John is wearing his hat on, but we're saying hats off to all good fathers everywhere. Even my own brother, Dexter Jerome Broome, he has stayed with his two girls. He's got two grown children, and we love them as well. And I want to say hats off to them. Congratulations. Good job wherever you are. And keep doing it. You never stop being a father, regardless of how old your children get. Remember that, John, right? You never get. And you mentioned something very important, John. You mentioned something very important that we call a helpmeet here. And it's someone who God has placed in our lives to help us in this journey of life, right? We call that person a helpmeet in the kingdom. And I would love for you to shout out, who is that person that you said you have another member of the team, of the signer team? Who is that other member of the signer team that helps you with this wonderful role of parenting?
Well, I'm going to assume you're talking about my wife, my wife Lisa, who you also know, and who has been amazing. We have, I think I definitely got very lucky in choosing her as a wife, and mostly because we are of similar belief in almost everything that we do. Granted that men and women are fundamentally different, and I've learned what Mars and Venus means by being married, but certainly when it comes to raising the children, we've always been very much on the same page, which has made things a lot easier, because certainly one of the things that they don't tell you about children is not only will it impact you as an individual, but it very much impacts your relationship with your spouse. And that's almost, I've never even heard that talked about very much. And the knock-on impact of having children onto your relationship is immediate and fundamental, and over time can be quite risky to damage your relationship. And I think that's a major reason why you see divorce and separation and fights and discontent, because it strains that teamwork. So as much as we've had our own challenges, we've been lucky to, again, be almost always on the same page fundamentally, and that's pushed us through. So we've seen the benefit of staying committed as a nuclear family, and that I think has reflected on not only my relationship with Lisa, but also how well the kids have kind of come along. So that's important, and something you can never, I don't think you can't always focus on the kids without focusing also on the family unit and your relationship specifically with your spouse. So that's important.
That's right. That is very important. And a shout out to Lisa Sina as well. We love her. And thank you so much. And just to correct something, John, she chose you. Okay. Yeah, she chose you. So
I've never figured that one out, but I think she might have done better, but I don't fight it.
So let's give Jack his Jack. She chose you. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you two got hooked up together. You all make a wonderful team, honestly. And I'm very glad that the boys have you two as parents. You make wonderful parents. And I'm very proud of you, John. For those who don't know, John is my friend from a long time ago. I think about 18 years or 20 years or something like that. Since we met.
Since we were kids, Cherise.
John is a little bit more mature than I am. So yes, I probably was a kid. I think he was not.
Well, all right.
But we just right. So I met John at school. So we went to college together, And we met a few very, very good friends at college, and we have not stopped being friends. And so that's why he was able to actually say yes so easily to coming on to this interview this evening. And I really want to say thank you again. So, even
That's what friends do, Cherise.
that's what friends do. And I appreciate you as a friend. I appreciate you as a friend, John Steiner. You have been a very good and faithful friend throughout the years. You and your wife, and now your children, by extension, your children. It's a real joy, to see your friend with his family. It's really a beautiful thing. And I really bless God for the Steiner family. And so, John, you said earlier that, once you have that new life, that different life, you just have to keep moving forward. There's no way that you could step back. You can't just give up. You can't jump ship, right? And I want you to tell us, who was it that didn't jump ship with you when you were that little human, that new human growing up? Who didn't jump ship?
Are you asking about my own father?
Yes, my dear. Yes.
Okay. Well, I looking back, reflecting on my own childhood and my own father, I guess you could call it lucky and fortunate that I was also born into a solid nuclear family. I had my mother and my father were married and had a good relationship. We all lived in the same house. I had an older brother that was 2 years older than me, so I was the second child, and I assume my parents had 2 years experience with my brother before they had me. So I was probably the one that never had all the pictures taken like my own.
Like
But
your second child now, right?
But my father he was in the military, so he was he was disciplined. He had a disciplined life, and that reflected upon on us. And he was very loving, but he also was probably more strict than I am with my kids. Although sometimes I also need to be strict in order to reinforce learning moments with my own children. But I was very lucky that my father was a family man, and we did everything as a family. And you often don't realize what a sacrifice your parents made when you're growing up until you're actually older, and you have the maturity to look back and reflect and say, wow, look at all those things that my parents did for me. And then when you have kids, you actually question, how did my parents do what I'm trying to do now?
Yeah.
I ask that a lot. And that's a testament to my parents who invested very much into the lives of their kids. And interestingly enough, we sort of had two sets of kids in my family. So I had my older brother and myself, and then we kind of went through the first 10 or so years together, just the four of us. Yeah. And then my parents had another child. I don't know if it was planned or not, but 12 years after I was born, I had a sister that came along. And then 4 years after that, a little brother. So we sort of had two sets of siblings in my family, which made it kind of cool. But, we were in high school. My brother and I were in high school when the kids were just, kind of babies and little, and there was no traditional sibling rivalry. It was more like a kind of like a babysitter relationship or quasi-parent, because we got to watch them all the time. So we were old enough that my mom and dad would just simply leave the young kids with us, and we would take care of them. And that was a really cool relationship. So yeah, my parents and my father had the fortitude not only to kind of raise two kids, but two sets of two kids all the way through. And they stuck with it. And I think as a result, all the kids had a wonderful childhood and were prepared to be an adult. So
that is awesome. And we just give honor where honor is due to your dad and your mom as well for the good job that they did. And, you keep mentioning that family unit, a strong family unit. And that is very important to us here at Growth Radio TT as well, because a strong family unit is what makes a society, a nation, a community strong. Right. And, you said earlier that, you and your wife are a team, and that's kingdom language there. That's kingdom lingo. because you become one with your wife. That's your wife, that's your partner, that's your friend. You're not enemies with your spouse for any reason. And once children are able to see and to observe that unity with mom and dad, it's a wonderful thing. They feel secure, they feel safe, they feel, so many good things, because they know that mom and dad, they're one, and they're strong, and that means that the family will be strong. So it's very important in a child's psyche, in a child's development, that mom and dad, that the family is strong. And I really give you pips for that, John, for you and Lisa, for really inculcating that, for really doing that. I see it. I mean, I've observed you guys, you work as a team, and I think you even have on your wall somewhere Team Signer. And I think that's awesome, John. I really think that's awesome. And I'm so sorry. I'm just so proud of you. I'm just so proud of you.
It's because you
and,
know me for 20 years and you think how impossible it might have been for me.
But thank God for Lisa. It's two are better than one. Two are better than one. And as you said, it's nonstop when you have children. And the master plan is that two do it together. It's not meant for one parent to do it on their own. It's really meant, the template, the blueprint is that two, a dad and a mom, they give something different, and it comes together, they complement each other so that the children can grow up to be healthy, mind, body, and spirit. So it's awesome what you guys have built together, as a team and as a family. And I really bless God for all of you. So tell me a little bit more about your dad. Do you have any of the favorite memories? What was your best memory with your dad growing up?
Well, there were so many of them. Again, it's easier to reflect backwards once you've kind of grown up, as opposed to in the moment. All the things that I thought were normal growing up, I didn't realize how special they were again until you got older. And one of the things that, you get impacted in ways that you don't realize until you do have the ability to reflect on them. And I've absorbed and realized that I am very much like my father, even though maybe there was many times when the last thing I wanted to be was like my father growing up. But I'm lucky because I ended up becoming very much like him. And one example is our love for travel and the insistence on creating experiences. And I just remember we were always on the go. My dad was in the military, so it was already a natural mobile lifestyle. We would move every few years, especially when I was young. We lived in Germany for a while. And, when we were living in Europe, I was a kid, very young kid, we would travel. We would just get in, and back then it was not as easy to travel as it is now, but we would just get in the car and we would go. So we tried, by the time I was 6 or 7 years old, I had traveled all over Europe and had these most amazing experiences, thinking that was normal and not realizing it until later that wasn't normal. And that continued. We'd go on ski trips and we were always insistent on going and doing and having experiences. And and again, the fact that my wife, Lisa, is also thinking in the similar way, that we treasure experiences much more than things to own. Right. So for example, when we give birthday and Christmas presents, or when it comes to Christmas and birthday time, we don't give presents per se, things, we give experiences. So we've been very, very good at that. Now that they're old enough, we've insisted that every summer we do some sort of family travel together, and that's been fantastic. And I think our kids think of that as normal, but we know that it's a special thing. So, when I look at my father and how much I've absorbed from him, it's pretty obvious now when I look back on it. And as you know, Cherisee, we never would have met each other had I not had my own love for travel and adventure as well. And we took this crazy college year together in Europe. And, that's just a reflection of who I am, but
Yes.
also thanks to the influence of my father. So
Yes, indeed, indeed. And I mean, travel is one of the best teachers. I mean, I learned that growing up. And, you know, that trip to college in Europe, that was my first trip outside of Trinidad and Tobago. First time. And, you know, I got a bug. So I got, you know, I got hooked. I got hooked on it. And I haven't had any opportunity to travel. You know, I do take it. And I've been where you are. I've been to where you are a few times and other places. I just love it as well. It is a wonderful adventure, and I would expect it's a wonderful adventure to have with your children. You know, it really expands their mind, and it teaches them things that us classroom cannot. So if any parent is able, you know, to travel, even you could even travel within your own country. I mean, the US is a big country. But even in Trinidad and Tobago, wherever you are, there are places that you can go and explore and just, you know, show your children the history of where they come from. So I think that's an awesome lesson that you learned from your dad, and something wonderful to keep passing on, a wonderful legacy, I would say, to keep passing on to your own two brilliant boys. So you said your father was in the military and he was very disciplined and but loving. Love and discipline do go hand in hand. So what was his name? What was his name?
well, his name was Richard, and I have his middle name. So my
Mhm.
name is John Richard, from him. Yeah, he grew up in New York, in very much near New York City, in on the Brooklyn side of New York.
Oh,
And I wouldn't say he had a rough upbringing, but he had a blue collar lifestyle, and his dad was kind of like in the sales business, but hard worker. Yeah, hardworking family, but he was very much rooted and kind of on the path to become that same lifestyle, just kind of continuing the next generation. A hardworking New Yorker is where his
yes.
life was destined. And as fate would have it, uh, he had a he was a little special, and he had a bug about him, an adventurous bug, and he tried different things. And one of them was he applied for the Air Force Academy because he had an infatuation with
Please.
airplanes.
Mhm.
And one thing led to another, and he was able to get an appointment to the Air Force Academy, which is in the U.S. Air Force Academy, which is in Colorado, in the
Yeah.
mountains of Colorado. A beautiful campus. And he went from, being a living, the street concrete jungle life in New York
Uh-huh.
to the green, wide open West in Colorado. And that fundamentally changed his life. And he sometimes used the word escaped from New York. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
totally right, but a lot of
Mhm.
people that he knows growing up, they never really left. They're New Yorkers for life. And my father wasn't. He took the adventure and did 4 years of school at the Air Force Academy, and that was absolutely perfect for him.
Yeah.
The guys that he went through the schools together became lifelong friends. They also joined when you graduate, he was trained to be a pilot, and they all became under the same squadrons together and became working Air Force people after graduation, and kept these relationships up. So my dad became a pilot, and he piloted very small fighter jets. And this was still, when he graduated, it was still the conflict, the U.S. Intervention and conflict in Vietnam was still happening. And he was sent on 2 tours when I was very, very little, to Vietnam, and he flew airplanes during that time. And he ended up, he did about 20 years in the Air Force. So
Wow.
in many ways, that Air Force military career, I don't want to say it saved him, but it certainly diverged his life into a place that he never probably dreamed that he could go. And he got to do his love of flying, and he never felt as good, professionally, as when he was flying. And unfortunately, when you're in the military and you're a pilot, your most flying happens on the younger side of your career. So the
Right.
older you get, you kind of turn into like a squad leader, and then you start to teach, and then you end up in the classroom, and then
Mhm.
you end up not flying at all. So
Okay.
he enjoyed those first few years of being a flyboy.
Right. Wow, that is awesome. So the Air Force, it changed his life's trajectory, but in a very, very good way. It's like he was living his dream, right?
Mm. Cherise, that it's interesting, but I make a parallel to that now that I think about it, of
Yeah.
the education and year of college that we did. That was a big leap of faith for both of us in our
Yeah.
different contexts. But
Yeah.
I had been searching for an elusive master's graduate degree that I never quite found fit my personality and
Yeah.
interests, which was, sport and being international. So I was kind of, in a way, floating around the US. I had gone to Paris for the World Cup in 1998, and I had the bug. And that when that opportunity of being able to take that year of the Masters, then I have never seized an opportunity more than
Yeah.
that. And that decision has led on to everything that I've done since
Yeah.
then, and been at the heart of my professional career, my professional network, and my social network as well. And that I can look back at my own life and say, what was a fundamental thing that changed my life into the direction? And it was the year that we shared together,
Yeah.
20 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yes, it was life-changing for sure. And so many things changed for me as well, John, and for good, for good. Um, but let's talk about you. You said everything else that you did stemmed a lot from that program. And that program, if you are interested to know what program we're speaking about the FIFA International Master in Sport Management. It is directed by the scholarly arm of the FIFA. The FIFA is the International Association of Football, and they are in Zurich. And the educational arm of the FIFA is called the CIES. It's the International Center for Sports Studies. It's the CIS in French. When you do the acronyms, and that is what we are talking about. If you want to know more about it, you can go to FIFA.com, and you're going to find out about that program. And so what did happen after that program? Tell us a little bit more about how your career changed and was enriched after that program, John.
Well, to be honest, I was looking for it, or that degree that had kind of been eluding me. And when I got there, I realized that it was indeed the perfect match for me. So I certainly tried to squeeze the most out of that year as possible. Cherise and the rest of the class will remember that during every guest speaker that we had, I was always the one raising my hand to ask one more question. But that was the way I treated it. And I hope that I treat life now, as I'm really trying to squeeze the most out of, every opportunity that kind of comes your way. And that was a huge one. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, to be honest. I just knew I wanted to have an international sport adventure. And I found that was an incredible path to walk down by doing that master's. And it's a long story of how it happened, but I ended up getting a 1-year assignment at the International Olympic Committee on the back of that master, thanks in part to a great story of how the position originally went to one of our classmates, as you remember, who got hired by the IOC in Switzerland. And she, after a month on the job, was hired in another area and was taken for a full-time job, which meant her job opened up. And she called me and said, if you want, I will recommend you, but you need to send your CV immediately to me, this person. And that it was a chain of events that led me into her position. And yes. I was there for 7 years in the IOC in Switzerland. And I just went right up the ladder based on my experience. And then that just opened up the rest of the world to me. So I was able to get a very amazing Olympic adventure. And I was able to travel all over the world and work on different Olympic games. And I also had one foot in football.
Yeah.
not the American kind, but the international kind. And eventually, as I transitioned out of the Olympic world, or of the IOC, I kept one foot in the Olympic world and one foot in the football world, and now kind of combine them both. So I do a lot of work on FIFA World Cups and other kind of football competitions and events, and got into a whole host of different things over that time. But yeah, that's kind of how it played out after the graduation was over. I lived for a long time in Europe, and then I ended up getting married in Europe, which was pretty cool.
Yes.
And my then wife lived with me for a few years in Switzerland, which was a great experience. And then as we transitioned out, we had this concept of establishing a new business, where, as you remember, Cherisee, we took 1 year, and in the establishment of this business, which I called at the time and still do, Why Sport Matters. We looked at why people all over the world like and enjoy, and sport is so important to people and unique in cultural context. So we did this crazy research and media project where we spent 1 year traveling the world, which was an amazing adventure, just the two of us, because we knew if we were to have kids, we probably couldn't do that kind of trip again for a long, long time. So we did this crazy trip, and then ended up landing back in the United States, close to her family here in Florida, although my wife is Canadian. Her immediate family lives where we are in Florida. And then we ended up having the 2 kids. So I was able to kind of continue those businesses being based here in Florida. So my life is much different than when we knew each other 20 years ago. Now I have a house and a wife and 2 kids and all that.
You're a big boy. I'm so grateful.
I'm all grown up.
You're all grown up, my baby.
I don't feel it, but I must be somehow.
Oh, goodness. And we bless God for each of those accomplishments. John, good job. So was your dad able to see any of that? Was your dad able to celebrate any of that?
So that's probably one of the more sadder notes of this conversation, is that my father passed away in 2005. So that makes it, 17 years anniversary this year. So that was difficult time period for my family. So it was after you and I were in school together. It was while I was living in Switzerland, and he got cancer, and it actually progressed very, very quickly. So on one hand, he did not suffer a long time, like many cancer sufferers do. But at the same time, it was sudden and shocking, and a difficult period of life to move through, particularly hard on my mom, obviously. And, I had the 2 younger siblings who probably felt it even more so, because, they had been closer to actually living under the same roof as I was, because I had been out of the house for many years at that point. So it was tough on my little brother and sister, and it was an adjustment for us. So as much as my father was an amazing influence on his life, and he was a great person, and he actually he became more, let's say, while he was in the military, he was kind of, had a regimented lifestyle and was disciplined. And when he retired from the military, he became, let's just say, a little more laid back, and he got into the family a little bit more, especially when grandkids came, and we started having spouses and so on, and we expanded. So I think that's the biggest tragedy, is that I never felt like my father really got to embrace the fruits of all of his labor and life's work. He was only a couple of years away from retiring from his career, because he had gotten into the business of the military at that point. And he was a couple of years away, and my little brother was still in college. So he had one or 2 more years to get the last kid out of college, so to speak. And I think, I don't know if regret's the right word, but the tragic consequence of that is he never got to meet my wife. He never got to meet my kids. He didn't get to go to my wedding. And the same for my little brothers and sisters. He never got to reach those milestones as well. So, we very much have a hole in our lives when it comes to grandpa. And it's a bummer. It's a bummer, but at the same time, I try to rationalize it with myself and explain it to my kids that your grandpa, my father, is still very much alive, but he lives through us. So the love that my grandfather has for my kids has to come through me, and does come through me. And the literal blood goes into goes into me, and then has gone into them. So I say he lives also within you. So my oldest kid, his middle name is also Richard, so that legacy will continue to go on. So his name is London Richard. So we still try to consciously make sure that he's included in our life to a degree, knowing that he's missing. But you can chalk it up to, that's the way life happens and unravels. We were lucky to have him for the time that we did, and there's a hole in our life, but we try to keep making sure that his legacy is a positive one, and that's important.
Yes, and I'm glad that you're doing that, because it's so important to carry on that legacy, so your kids know where they've come from. They know they've got a strong legacy, John, a very important question that I have to keep asking because of the tide that we're in at the moment, the social and the cultural tide that keeps turning. Why is it? Why do fathers matter?
Why does sport matter?
No. Let me say it again. Why?
I did hear the question.
Okay.
You were talking about this earlier, that fundamentally it does need to be a husband and wife team, right? That the teamwork is the most important part, right? It's hard enough to be two raising children, but to be one, I don't know how they do it. It's, for me, impossible. It's almost like a non-starter, because it's just too hard. And I don't know where, I guess, people who are in the situation of being a single parent just find the personal resource to be able to do it. But it's just so hard. And it's near impossible to juggle and balance everything, and to be effective at it. So my hats off go to all those people that are in a situation where it's a single parent situation, because it's extremely difficult. So there's lots of different situations that happen in the world, and I respect them all. I've seen different situations of divorce and losing a spouse and different things, but life is a series of challenges for sure. But it's certainly a lot easier to do as a teamwork, and I think a father adds a certain dimension to it that he can't do the same way as a mother, and a mother maybe can't do the same as a father. And a single parent, you have to act as both, which is very challenging. So if you have a couple, you find a balance, like it could be one is good cop, one is bad cop, and it can kind of be either one, but you have the ability to play off of each other and try to do what's right as a team in that terms. But in many ways, I've taken on some of the traditional role of being a father. Like, I love to get them outside and playing. I coach both of their soccer teams. I try to teach them things like math and working with your hands and how to fix things, and computers and bikes and stuff in the garage, and kind of the traditional things. And it's fun to do that and kind of pass on that kind of knowledge. So there's certain things that a father will just be maybe more blunt and to the point on teaching than a woman or mom might. She might be more sensitive or not as direct. So, but again, I think the key is the balance between the two. But it's helpful in a relationship to have the mom and father balance. So
it's beautiful.
Yes. Do fathers matter? Yes. Do sometimes they get the raw end of the deal? Yeah, maybe, but that's kind of life. A kid needs their mom, that's for sure.
Yeah, a kid needs their mom and a kid needs their dad. I think, there is a whole society, there's a whole community of fatherless children who are hurting so, so very deeply. It's a problem. It's a problem that I don't think it's wise to ignore, because it's actually messing with our kids, and messed up kids grow up to be messed up adults. And I think that's a problem. Unfortunately, we don't have time to even go into that in this segment. But I just wanted, so to put that out there, that we do believe that fathers matter. We do believe men matter as well. And you are valuable. You are valuable. And fatherhood is an honorable position to hold. And we are glad for those who stuck with it, right? Including you. So, John, as we just have a few minutes left in this segment, and I don't know if you would be willing to come back and talk a little bit more about yourself as a dad and your dad as a dad as well. But the floor is open and the invitation is an open one. But I'd like to know, in your eyes, growing up, right? Fill in the blanks. In your eyes, your father was your.
Well, I mean, definitely a role model and an example. So
Yeah.
I think that's important. And you made a very good point that about fathers choosing to step away for their kids. And again, I don't have judgment against anybody, but it is a challenge. And you called it a problem, but it's certainly challenging because a lot of times, if you're not ready to go into fatherhood, which a lot of people are not, they're still not able as a young man or an individual, they're not comfortable enough with themselves to be able to be comfortable enough raising a child. So they have to figure this stuff out for their own before they can turn it on, pass it to somebody else. And the problem is that affects the child. So in one hand, it's a very, individualistic way of looking at it. Whereas if you immediately start to look at it through the child's eyes and the impact on the child and how they grow up, then it becomes a bigger societal problem because you're having kids that aren't being raised in the right way. And, the best way to do that is to be involved as a parent. So it's underestimated how a young person looks to their elders, their people, the adults in their lives, as the accepted normal of how to act and how to behave. So adults and parents need to be consciously an example of how the children will look. They don't do as you say, they do as you do and as you act. And that takes a mental commitment to say, I'm going to behave like this. I'm going to have principles, and because I want them to be good people, I need to be a good person. Right. Yeah. And that's critical to me. And I try to be an example myself, but I also tell my kids that they also need to set and be an example for each other, for other kids, for kids that are younger and so on. So when I look back on it, my father was very much my example, my role model of how I, for the most part, how I wanted to be, knowing that there was also those things that I would have done differently. Yeah. That I remember consciously saying, when I have kids, I'm going to do it like this, because I knew how I felt as a kid in those moments. I said, for whatever the thing I'm talking about is, I said, I'll do that differently and I will provide this with my kids. One of the things is being, more open to talk about, any subject, and being more proactive when it came to things like, I don't know, puberty and all the things that kids really need to know that I felt maybe I didn't get from my parents. So I learned mostly of how to act and maybe some things that I would try to improve upon. And that it was, my fundamental role model of who I should be. Critical.
Critical. And it's good that you are doing the same thing for your children, because maybe at some point in their life, they might be in an interview talking about their dad. What would they say? What would you,
God help us.
What would they say, and it's something that we have to also consider. And I'm glad you brought that up as well, John, that as a parent, it's important to be intentional with your actions, because no action that we take is without a consequence. And regardless, it really doesn't matter. We're not living in a vacuum. No man is an island. Whatever you do affects someone else. And it's important. And I'm glad that you said that you are intentional about your actions, because your children are looking at what you do more than what you say. That there is that proverb that says actions speak louder than words, and it's true, because they do. You could say whatever you want to say till you're blue in the face, but if your actions don't align with what you're saying, then you lose your integrity as a parent, as an authority figure, right? And it's very good that you have that culture in your home, John, that you are teaching your children to be good humans, to be responsible humans, because they're not always going to be kids. They're not always going to be kids. They're
No.
going to be somebody's husband. They're going to be somebody's employee. They're going to be somebody's employer. And, we have to be cognizant of those things as parents. And I think you guys are doing a good job. Congratulations.
Well, we're trying. I don't know if we're doing a good job, but we're certainly trying, and we are present. So that in and of itself is good, because we do know a lot of kids that don't have the same environment.
That's right. And that's so important. The presence of a father in a home, the presence of a parent, the presence of mom and dad in the home together as one, acting as a team, that does, it's explosive what it does for a child's and individual's ability to learn, to love, to exist as a human being. And I want to say thank you to all those parents, all those fathers, all those moms, who have, really embraced the challenge, who have embraced the call to be a parent, to be a father, to be a mother. We value you. You are awesome. And so I'm sorry we don't have any more time for this interview, but perhaps we can ask Mr. Siner if he would grace us with his presence another time. And we'll see what he says off air, off camera. And I'll tell you guys next time I see you, okay? And we want to say thank you to everybody who logged on tonight, wherever you were listening from, those all over the world. We see the statistics coming in from where you're listening from, and we really are appreciative that you keep logging on to Growth Radio every day, every week, however you listen to us. From wherever, we appreciate you. We thank you so much for your support. Please keep supporting us. We have our Facebook pages that you can go on to, YouTube. And who is this handsome guy? Hello, who's this handsome guy? Oh my God.
Do you remember Miss Cherisee?
Yeah.
That's her right there. Say hi.
Hi. Hello, and this is John's youngest, Hudson Siner.
Who's your daddy?
Hudson. Hudson, who's your daddy?
Where is your daddy? Where is he?
What do you mean?
Who's your daddy, Hudson? Let me ask him. Hudson.
She's asking who's your daddy?
He's not hearing.
I have the headphones. Now say
all right. Hudson. Hi, Hudson.
Hi.
Who's your daddy?
Where is he?
There?
Yeah.
All right. So we give God praise for both of you, Hudson Siner. This is John's youngest. And we just want to say a warm growth welcome. And we have to say goodbye now, but we value both of you. Hudson, it's great to see you. You're so grown. Oh my gosh. You're so handsome as well. Oh my goodness. It's so good to see you. So I want to say thank you to both of you and your family, and to Lisa, everyone who's listening, everyone who's in the team Siner. And, we're going to see you again, hopefully, after this pandemic cools down. I hope to see you guys either in Trinidad and Tobago, or I can come there. So God willing. Right. So thank you so much. So until next time, Growth Radio listeners, we have to sign off now. Hi. Oh my God, it's a family affair.
We're all here now, Cherise. It's one big party.
There's no going back. Hi, London.
Cherise.
Hi, London. Hi, London. Who's your daddy?
This guy. All right.
That guy. We're grateful for that guy there that you're pointing to. happy 10th, happy belated 10th birthday, London. And
Okay.
He said, thank you.
no problem. And we thank you again. Thank you, John, for coming on. Thank you so much, Hudson, for coming on. Thank you, London, for coming on. And Lisa in the background somewhere. Good night, everybody. And have an awesome week ahead, okay? Be safe and be blessed. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Cherise. Much love.
Okay, don't go, John.
Oh, don't go.
Yes, my daddy is the best.
Growth Radio is
I'll be there just a
growing
second.
with a new program, Who's Your Daddy? Every Sunday evening from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Who's Your Daddy? Every Sunday, 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Growth Radio, growthradiotv.com.
This is the message to the saints. The table has been set, so take your place. There is no more condemnation. There is only grace.
Growth Radio, Gospel Radio, our way to heaven. Growth Radio, Gospel Radio, our way to heaven. One king and one kingdom making people feel like family.